240 days ago, I put up a permanent out of office message when I began my year-long career break. I took this time off this year to pursue a long-term dream, and for me, that was travel. I've had a lot of support over the time, but also a lot of people say that they would love to do the same, but they simply can't afford it. So, every month, I share exactly what it costs for two people, my husband and I, to travel the world on our year-long career break. Everything that I present is in US dollars since that's where we're based and that's what our budget is in. And I would consider us to be mid-range travelers. So we like a bargain, but we're usually middle of the road. So I believe that the figures that we present are pretty good medians or averages for people to consider. But depending on your travel style, you might spend more if you want more luxury, or you might spend less depending if you are seeking more of a budget experience. Before we started this journey, I did my best to estimate about how much I thought that we would spend every month. So this has really changed, evolved, adapted as we have hit the road. We've started moving around and to different places than I originally planned. But my original estimate for this month was $3,000. So let's dive in and see how close we got this month. This month we spent $3,251. Now, that covers us moving around 3 different countries. We finished our time in Laos, we had a stopover for a few days in Thailand, and then we spent the majority of our time in Cambodia, about 23 nights that we spent there. I do also want to point out that this total dollar amount for the month is not just the cost of travel, but it also includes some general expenses. And I'll dive into exactly what it means to have general expenses, but I think it's important to consider what you have to pay even while you're gone and while you're away. What I do want to say is that this amount is significantly less than we would spend if we had just stayed in Arizona for a whole month. So hopefully this is a little bit intriguing and you can see that it can be affordable to pursue a dream of yours if you've saved enough. I'll give you just a quick little snapshot of our breakdown to get a good indication of where we spend the majority of our money, and then I'll dive into some of these categories. Month over month, the top 2 things that we see that cost us the most money are accommodation. Where are we going to sleep over these 30 to 31 nights, as well as moving around. It costs money to move yourself around within a country, between countries. This month, our restaurant budget went up just a bit and it kind of crept into second place. So we'll talk about why that is. I'm not going to go over every single category today, but we'll talk about the big ones. The very first thing I want to call out is how much we spent on accommodation this month, and that was over $800, and that's for the whole month. So this month we spent the majority of our time in either hotels or homestays, and that covered the gamut of experiences, I would say. Right out of the bat, I want to acknowledge that we did spend 3 nights in Bangkok, Thailand, on a stopover between Laos and Cambodia, and we were able to cover that cost using points, using Chase points, I believe. We have found time and time again that Hyatt has very good returns on point values. So we've stayed at the Hyatt place on our first time in Bangkok. We liked it so much. We came back, really enjoyed the amenities again. So that's a place that I would really recommend looking into. Outside of that, we did spend a lot of our time in hotels, and I use the term hotels loosely because it can mean a lot of different things here in Southeast Asia. We've had some really nice experiences. A few to call out would be the Albion Asian in Kampong Cham, where for $35 a night, we had a really comfortable room with a balcony that overlooked the Mekong. They had a really beautiful rooftop terrace and bar area. Another place that we really enjoyed was in Kampot, Cambodia. One of the first places we stayed there was the Emerald Residence, and that, I believe, was around $45 a night. We were there for the Chinese New Year, and so the prices did go up due to the timing of that, but it was nice to have some really cozy and somewhat chic experiences to look forward to this month. We did also marry that with some homestays. And the homestays tend to be a bit more basic. You are staying in somebody's home, effectively, renting a room. So you'll have your basics, you'll have your bed and a bedside table. They often do include breakfast, so that can be a little bit of a money saver there. But it's been really nice experiences overall. And I think it's great because when you look at what we spend over the course of a month on accommodation, I think it's really affordable compared to anything that we could possibly get when we're back home in the US. Our second highest spend category this month is dining out and drinks. And I've combined the two together because it's usually happening together. We haven't been drinking very much, but on occasion, especially as we got into Cambodia, there was some cheaper beverages. So we might have a few dinners and drinks there. So the total we spent this month on dining out was $760. And what I do want to call out is that we ate out every single meal. Since we stayed in hotels and homestays, we did not have access to a kitchen, so that meant that we were always looking for meals out. And so when you think about how much you're eating and how often you are dining out, then $760 is quite reasonable. I think when I was originally estimating how much I thought we would spend, it was around $750 on food for two people. So not too far off this month. I will say it was a little bit higher than we've seen in other months, and the main reason for that is because we've been traveling for over 7 months now, and while we do enjoy the food in Southeast Asia, sometimes you just want a little break, a little taste of home, and so this month we did have some more Western meals. We went out and had pizza with friends one night, which was really fun. And then when we were in Bangkok, we also found an English-style pub. So you gotta have some bangers and mash, some chips and curry sauce for me. And anytime you're having Western food, that's going to cost you more. So I think that accounts for some of what we've seen this month. That being said, even when we're going out to these more Western style places, I believe the most we spent out for two people to eat was $32. And so even comparing that to back home, I think to get an average meal back home, burgers and fries and maybe a drink, you're going to spend at least $40. So really no complaints in terms of our food and drink budget. And it can really be a wide range depending on what kind of food you're eating. I would say Jimmy won the prize this month for the cheapest meal. For 50 cents, he got some meat skewers for lunch one day. So you can really spend as much or as little as you want on food and beverage. Next up is transportation, and we spent over $500 this month just moving around. The more time that we have spent on the road, the more that we have found ourselves moving between destinations and moving at a faster rate. Originally, we were spending about 1 month just in a single location so that we could really get embedded, but now we're feeling a bit more comfortable, a bit more confident. We're not feeling like we have to book so far out in advance, and so this month we moved 7 times between different cities. And anytime you move, no matter how budget savvy you are, it's going to cost you money. We really did a lot of different transport options this month. We did have one flight, and that was to get from Laos to Bangkok. We've tried to be really cognizant of not taking a lot of flights while we're in Southeast Asia. So in addition to the flights, we've taken pretty much any other form of transport you can think of. We did take the high-speed train in Laos to get from Vang Vieng to the capital city. We have really leveraged the giant ibis company, especially as we moved from Thailand and into Cambodia. We've had a wonderful experience with them, very comfortable transport at a reasonable price. We do have a few videos on that, so if you want to learn more about giant ibis and what that entails, then check that out. But as much as possible, we tried to take the shared transportation. We've had a few luxury vans, and I use that term very loosely because sometimes the luxury vans, the air conditioning gives out on you halfway, but it's all a little bit of an adventure along the way. But this is a pretty good average to keep in mind if you're in the same region that we are. One thing we have really enjoyed in Southeast Asia is whenever we're staying put for a little bit longer is having the chance to rent a scooter to get around the local area. And so we had a chance to do that in Cambodia, And I would say scooters cost around $5 or $6 to rent for a day. So it's very reasonable and it helps you get out and explore a little bit more than maybe you would if you're just going on a basic tour. Now, the general category. I mentioned that we have this general spend bucket and it costs us about $500 a month. So what exactly does that entail? It includes things like our international phone plan. We decided to keep our phone plan that we had in the US because it came with international coverage. And for us, it has worked quite well. We've not had any issues. We're able to do Wi-Fi calling. We get a set amount of data per month. Sometimes we do run out of that data, and it means that our search speeds go pretty far down, so that can be a little bit of a challenge, but we weren't quite ready to give up our US numbers, and we weren't sure about the whole eSIM thing, so that might be something we try in the future, but right now we're paying our monthly phone bill as is. The other thing we really want to account for is insurance. You still have to pay insurance when you're gone, and I suppose this is all really personal based on what your belief in insurance is or maybe where you're from, but for us, we have to account for things like having travel health insurance, which was something that was important to me. If one or both of us gets really sick, we want to be able to have the right level of care available to us. We also own a home that we rent out, so we have to pay for that renter insurance every month. And I've kept a car in storage back home. So while I don't need the collision coverage while I'm abroad, it has really reduced that insurance coverage. I still need a little bit while it's in storage just in case anything would happen to the storage unit. And then finally, we have kind of our little miscellaneous expenses. We do have a monthly storage fee where we keep some of our belongings. We rent our house out furnished, so the big stuff is still in the house, but our little keepsakes are stored away for the year. This also accounts for things like our subscriptions that we have and continue to use even while we're traveling. I do think it's important to account for these things, though, because it's one thing to look at what it costs just to travel, but it's another to consider what does it cost for you, what you still have to pay when you're back home. And I would say this is a category that could vary greatly for people depending on what you're leaving behind. Maybe it's something, maybe it's nothing, but for us, we do end up spending about $500 on general expenses every month. Activities. One of the things that you want to do is get out, explore, go on adventures, and this month, despite spending, I think, relatively low dollar amount, we've had some amazing activities. Now, we spent $264 on what I would consider sightseeing, activities, things like this. Off the top of my head, the most expensive things we did were in Siem Reap. That included visiting Angkor Wat and a few other temples with a one-day pass to access that site, and that was amazing. The next day, we also went and did a tour of the floating villages on Tonle Sap Lake. And I do have videos on those experiences if you're curious about what that looked like. At $160, it was well worth it. It's hard to believe how much value you can get for cultural activities here. Now, we are moving, we are out and about, we are exploring, but you also want to be able to take advantage of some downtime. And so one of the things we've done here that we do not usually get to do back home is that we've invested in massages. Massages can be very affordable. So for 2 people, we had 3 massages this month, and it cost us about $70, and that's including the tip as well. Jimmy, he really loves the long massages, so he'll get a 2-hour massage. I'll usually stick to an hour, hour and a half, but you can get really high quality, good massages that are very affordable, and so that's something that we've definitely enjoyed since we've been traveling in this part of the world. Another fun thing we did was in Vang Vieng, we rented a buggy for a half day. That was $45, and it allowed us to get out into the countryside to really get immersed, to explore some of the lagoons, some that were even away from some of the tourist zones, so that can be really fun. But it doesn't have to be really expensive things either. Some other activities that we've enjoyed are just renting bikes to explore, such as in Kampong Cham, we rented bikes for the day and went across the bamboo bridge and got to see a little bit of the island. We've also visited some of the local museums, and so you can do quite a lot on a fairly reasonable budget when it comes to activities. Our health is really important to us, and we don't just want to react to health things, we want to be proactive. And so at this point in our travels, at this point in our year, it had been nearly 1 year since we had done our last healthcare checks. That was last year when we were in the US, when we still had health insurance coverage. We were both seen by PCPs, and so it was time for us just to do some checkups. So while we were in Bangkok, we both got lab tests done, and we were able to select a package of screenings, and then we were able to add any specific things we wanted to test for an additional cost. So for myself, for example, I also wanted to make sure that I had my iron tested, that they did a test for B12 since I don't eat meat, and that can put me at risk for having a lower B12 rate. Jimmy had his own things he also wanted to check on. Really easy process. Our results came back within 24 hours. All good. So that is good to know and quite affordable as well. And then, of course, as a lady, you have to account for things like feminine care products and what they have available to you and how much that cost can look very different. So all in all, we spent about $150 on healthcare this month. Finally, I've wrapped up all of our little onesie-twosies things into our other categories. So we spent about $150 on other things. And what exactly does that include? That includes things like shopping. I finally let go of my trainers that I've had for the last 2 years. I got really attached to them, but it was time. They were getting holes in them and becoming quite uncomfortable to wear, so I picked up a new pair of gym shoes while we were in Bangkok. Jimmy did a little bit of shopping as well, got some new tops because we have a very limited wardrobe with us while we're traveling with our backpacks. So sometimes things wear out a little bit faster, so we were able to get some fresh clothes. And then we also have to account for things like technology. I really needed another SD card because I was getting so much good footage that I was running out of places to store it. So things like that account for our spend of around $100 on shopping this month. We do also have some groceries, and I know I said that we didn't cook any of our meals because we didn't have a kitchen, and that's true, but we do pop into the little marts, the little shopping places. We might get some water, we might get some juices, some snacks for the road. All of those little things really add up. And so this month we spent about $55 on groceries. And then the last thing that I wanted to account for was also laundry. Being able to just drop your laundry off, to have somebody else do it, is such a luxury, and I can't believe how affordable it is. So for both of us to get our laundry done this month, it cost us $6. And that is something I'm going to cherish, especially in a few months when we're going to have to start doing our own again. So, like I said at the top of this video, all in all, we spent $3,200 this month. And if you take out that general spend category and you just want to look at the travel, so how much it cost us to spend some time in Laos, Thailand, and Cambodia for a month, it was closer to $2,700, no, nearly $2,800. So I would say a really good value. And we look at what we spent overall so far since we left home 7.5 months ago, we are at nearly $32,000. Our original goal was to spend around $4,000 a month, and that's just a target. We never wanted to sacrifice experiences or having a comfortable, safe place to stay. We feel like $50,000 might be quite reasonable. Again, this is for 2 people, and that's not far off what we would spend just sitting at home. So we'll continue to track this for the rest of the year. And if you want to take a look back at our playlist on what our monthly cost breakdown is, then you can get more details on exactly what we have spent every month since the very beginning. And you can see that we really do still continue to trend down, which is making me very happy because when we started out in Europe, in the UK, our monthly spend was quite high. And that's even when we were offsetting a lot of our costs with points, with gift cards, with family stays. And so now that we've entered Southeast Asia, I found that we can have a really reasonable living at a very reasonable rate. So that's been great to see. And I'd love to hear from you. How do you feel about how we're doing so far? Do these figures surprise you? Do they inspire you? Do you feel like you could potentially live at this rate if you were to take a year off work? Hopefully, it's given you some food for thought. And if you have any other questions or want to know more, then let us know in the comments.